Welcome to You Can Do It Too, a podcast highlighting regular folks who followed their dreams and made it happen. I'm Joan Hutchinson, your restaurant maven. I've been described as a risk taker, though I never thought of myself that way. My mom always told me I could do or be whatever I wanted as long as I set my mind to it, and I believed her. I've moved across the country more than once, was an actor in LA doing theater, independent films, and even stand-up. I ran a successful catering company that led to owning and operating an award-winning Southern California restaurant. All this prior to earning a bachelor's degree in business management and marketing. Listen, you don't need a degree to accomplish your dreams. You need drive, passion, and belief in yourself, along with some caring folks who support you and believe in you. Since then, I've gone on to work in country clubs, casinos, a culinary school, and hotels. I've been coaching and consulting with small business owners for the last few years and blogging with business advice. I wanted to do more, to share more, to reach more of you. I decided to talk with folks I admire. Lots of amazing 30-somethings, even some remarkable 20-somethings, and of course, more seasoned folks who kick ass at what they do. To show you, you can do it too. All right, thank you everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And thanks to Chris Hutchinson for producing this and most of these podcasts. I am grateful for you and everyone in my life that has helped and supported me on this journey we call life. With Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, everyone has lots going on, so I appreciate the time that you're giving me. I want to make sure that we are interacting. Tonight it's just you and me and Chris. So I hope you'll chime in with your comments as we go along. All right. So let's talk about fear. Fear is a way for our brains to alert us to danger. When we experience fear, our brain reroutes energy to the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that processes emotions. And this slows down the processing in other areas that helps us think clearly or make great decisions. It invokes the fight or flight response. Now, fear isn't just a bad thing, right? Because if we are in danger, if there's a fire, then it's going to alert us that there's a fire, and we are going to have to jump into action and do what we need to do. So our heart starts racing, our blood starts pumping, and then we'll take action. What happens when it's not a good thing for us is we allow fear to affect us over things that we think are going to happen, over things that maybe we expect will happen, but that won't necessarily happen. Fear, Mel Robbins says, fear robs us of experiences in our life. Fear and excitement. They both have the same physical attributes, right? Like when you're afraid, your heart's pumping, your blood's racing. When you're excited, your heart's pumping, your blood's racing. Rebecca Baylor, one of my guests, said, well, fear's just another way of excitement, another form of excitement. So there's different ways to look at a situation. Of course, when you're in the middle of it, that amygdala gets in the way, right? And it doesn't let us think of the positive in that situation. So, what things make you afraid, right? What causes you to be afraid and hold yourself back? For me, I think it's fear of failure. I'm afraid of trying something and it not working. And not just trying something and it not working, trying something, telling the world I'm going to try something, and then it not working.
Well, Tony Robbins tells us failure is the greatest learning tool of all time. So every time you fail, chalk it up to one more learning experience, right? Nothing to be afraid of. It's just a stepping stone. As long as we learn from what we're going through, we can only get better. Before we started tonight's episode, Chris and I were talking about skydiving, and he was saying that he would really like to skydive, and that's something, that all you had to do was to get in the plane, and then once you jumped, right, there was nothing you could do about it, which is true. I mean, there's no turning back once you jump out of the plane. So that's something that I think we can look at that right there. Before you skydive, they make you take a class, right? So you have to take a class and learn all these safety things and think when to pull the chute and how to behave and how you're supposed to stand, how you're supposed to land, how you're supposed to jump out of the plane, right? They teach you all these things and tell you about the safety. And then you get on the plane. And then you're standing there and you're waiting for them to push you out of the plane or for you to jump. But in my case, it would be push for sure. What's happening to your body right then, right? Your heart's racing, your blood is pumping, the fear or excitement, however you want to look at it, is happening. Your body is just pulsating with energy. And you jump or they push you. Then what happens? There's nothing you can do, right? Except for fall. Now that you're out of the plane, are you going to keep being afraid? Are you going to keep being afraid so that you can't remember all those safety things? Or are you going to relax in the fact that you took the leap? Now you're going to take a deep breath, a belly breath, right? You got to take a breath from your belly. You got to feel it in your belly. It's got to be nice and deep because you're already, heart is pumping, short breath, right? So you need to take that belly breath, calm your body down, and now your brain can think. And then you remember, okay, I'm not supposed to pull my chute until this time. I'm not going to land until this time. You're going to remember each thing, but you've got to bring yourself to that calm state, right? I thought that was a great example. I remember when I was a kid talking to my mother about moving. Now, in my younger years, I never moved. I grew up in the house. I wasn't born in the house, but you know what I mean, where I was born. But prior to that, my parents had moved quite a bit. I'm the youngest of 9 kids, and they moved a lot. And I remember asking my mother, weren't you afraid? Were you afraid that Dad wasn't going to find work? They moved from Michigan to California, and he didn't have a job. I couldn't imagine doing that. They had 8 children. They loaded in the car along with all their belongings, and they drove across country and moved. Just the thought of that gives me the willies. And I asked her, weren't you afraid? Weren't you afraid that you wouldn't find work, that it wouldn't, with these kids, and that you wouldn't have the money to take care of everyone? And she said, no, I had faith. Your dad always took care of us, and I knew he would be able to do it again. Wow. So that was my role model. A pretty amazing woman who taught me and my siblings an awful lot. And I'm thankful for her and for my siblings. But one of the other things that I wanted to say about fear is that it's not a bad thing that you're afraid. Everyone has to experience fear. Right, Brianna? I appreciate that. She did fear nothing. My mother feared nothing. um, and what a great example she led. I mean, she was smart. She didn't make poor choices, but she sure had a lot of faith. Um, and speaking of Brianna, I'm glad she chimed in because Brianna was one of the first people I talked to on this podcast. And we talked about fear when her partnership fell through. She had a very strong why, right? She needed a strong reason to continue her plan of running her own business. And she said, well, it was either make it or fall flat on my face. So I chose to make it, right? She chose to do everything in her power to make it. So it's this thing in your brain you've got to turn on, you know? I haven't allowed myself to be paralyzed by fear. When something bad happens to you, you know, bad things happen in life, right? When something bad happens to you, it's okay to feel bad and feel sorry for yourself for a little bit. You can allow yourself that. But you can't dwell on it because it's not going to do you any good. Dwelling on it gets you nowhere. The only way that you can move forward and get ahead is to step back, find the positives in that negative situation. What did I learn from that? What can I take away from that negative and improve my life with? It's not a religious thing, although I feel like it's a spiritual thing. It just is a thing, right? Anybody else have something that they're afraid of, that they maybe or had fear of, and then they overcame? I asked all of you a little bit about a big experience that you've gone through. Judy said she trained for and completed an Ironman distance triathlon. And she didn't just do it once, she did it twice. That is freaking amazing. And speaking of doing it twice, have you noticed that little kids, they have no fear, right? Why don't they have fear? They don't have fear because they haven't experienced that situation. So they're not expecting a certain outcome. They have no prejudgments. They just see that they want to do something and they do it. Then, after that, if they fail, then they want to try again. That's when they hesitate, right? That's when they hesitate. They fell once. So now they've got to think, do I want to fall? Or do I really want to reach that toy that's over there on the counter? And the only way I can reach it is if I'm on my 2 feet, right? So that toy is their motivation. That's what's getting them somewhere. So my thought about that whole triathlon that Judy told me about was, man, you trained so hard and you have no idea how hard that race is going to be. Then you did it, and holy crap, that's got to be hard. So, wow, that's awesome for you, Judy. That is truly amazing. And Becca said she traveled to India solo, that's really scary. I mean, I don't know very many people that speak in, I know they probably have several different languages in India, right? So I don't really know very many people that speak that language or any of them. I've always been a little nervous about going to a country that I don't speak the language. That doesn't stop me from wanting to go there, but that's a little scary, so wow, she went by herself. David went to trade school at 40 years old and changed his career. I know how that is. I was the old lady in the college classroom. I wasn't that old. I'm not that old, but you do feel a little well, let's face it, you feel a little bit nervous because you are so much older than everyone else. You want to make sure that you do well, right? Age has to mean something. So there's a little bit of pressure there, I think, in your brain because you're older, right? But it's pretty bold and it's pretty smart, and it takes some courage to do that. You're going to tell people, well, guess what? I'm 40 and I'm going back to school. So good for you, David, because that took courage. Wow, I saw a great quote. Joyce Meyer. Joyce Meyer says, courage is fear that said its prayers and decided to go forward anyway. I like that. I like that a lot. Does it make sense to me? Again, some of us have experienced negative outcomes from choices that we've made. I don't really know anybody who hasn't, right? I know Christopher, he's in my ear, but he always chooses to learn things the hard way, right? But not just him, I'm his mom, so I see that. But we all do. That's the best way you learn. You have to learn the hard way. That's when it sticks. And hopefully you're stepping back and you're looking at the positives. What did I learn from this? I always tell myself everything happens for a reason. And what's that reason? What can I learn from that? Yeah, there is. There's opportunity in every failure. Edison, what do they say? He failed thousands of times before he got that light bulb to work. I mean, every time you do right, the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So you don't want to do it the same way every time. You need to step back and say, what can I do differently this time? What is it that worked? You need to evaluate your actions and the outcomes, and then change the way you behave so that you'll get a different outcome, a better outcome, right? Something that Caleb said, right? He was telling me that when he was in sales, that they said you have to hear a certain number of no's before you get a yes. And so he told himself, every time he heard a no, awesome. That means I'm that much closer to my yes. What a great way to see that. What a great thing to keep in your brain and keep moving you forward. I have had lots of experiences in my life, and yes, experienced several failures. But as long as I'm stepping back and learning from each thing, geez, it was worth it. And where I am now, I feel like I am stretching and learning daily. I'm super excited about what is coming in the next year for this podcast. I have new people that I've been reaching out to so I can get them all lined up for future podcasts. I've also been connecting with a group of ladies who are amazing networkers, and I am going to have several guests on so that we can talk about specifics on networking, like ways to meet new people, different situations that can help us. Things I want them to talk about specific ideas of ways to meet people and talk to people instead of just saying, well, what do you do for a living? Which I think that most of us have gotten away from that now. But Michelle, who was my first guest, is the top sales producer in her company. She creates new conversations in the grocery store. She sees what you got putting in your cart and she's saying, she makes a comment about it. Wow, somebody's eating good tonight. Just to me, even though I talk a lot, I'm good at talking with people, or I feel like I am. It's that initial contact that I have a hard time with. So because I want it, and I know that meeting new people is gaining me some new experiences and helping me stretch and grow, it's worth it. It's worth that little bit of uncomfortableness that I'm feeling when I'm looking at someone trying to think about what to say. I hope that I won't have to rehearse different things to say in my brain when I'm meeting someone before I actually say it. I'm hoping that soon it's going to just come naturally, like it seems to with Michelle. But the only way that's going to happen is if I practice and continue working on it. So I'm kind of getting away from the fear thing, but it all stems from fear. And Chris and I were talking about really the way I see fear is we're afraid of things that might happen. That doesn't mean they're gonna happen. And a lot of the time, they don't happen. We were talking about an example with dogs. So you're meeting a dog, you're walking down the street and you see a pit bull, and in your brain you go, pit bull, they eat babies. So I don't want to have anything to do with that dog. Oh my gosh, I don't want it to come attack me. And your heart starts pumping, your blood's rushing through your body. And now what am I going to do? Am I going to run? Well, what happens if you run from a dog? The dog's going to chase you, right? So you don't want to run. You've got to think of something else. So are you going to just stand there? Are you going to talk to the owner? How are you going to behave when it comes to this dog? You know what? I've heard of and met several pit bulls that are incredibly nice and wonderful dogs. So if you just stood there, maybe the dog would come over and say hello, let you pet him, and be just as sweet as pie, right? But you would never know if you ran away or if you walked to the other side of the street. A dog isn't interested, is, not a people example, but it's a good example. What are you going to do? Are you going to run away? Are you going to face your fear? And when it comes to fears, is it worth it, right? Is what I'm afraid of and I feel like I need to do, is it worth it? You need to decide your why. So that was back to what I was saying with Brianna. Her why was, well, it's sink or swim, baby. So I'm going to swim. Is it worth it? Am I worth it? Is my dream worth it? Is what I'm imagining my great life and great existence worth the effort of stretching and learning, meeting new people, talking with someone that maybe I never would have had a conversation with before? It absolutely is. Your dreams are worth it. Your dreams are worth your effort. You need to face those fears. You grow from being uncomfortable. Don't let the fear overwhelm you and rob you of all the goodness that life has to offer. Women Thrive magazine suggests going with the option that scares you the most because it's going to help you grow the most. I feel like when I interviewed Rebecca, she said something similar, but it's so true. We deserve great experiences in our lives, and we deserve all the goodness there is to come. So make sure that you are being true to yourself, being honest to your dreams, and facing those fears with conviction. Take a deep breath. Know who you are and fight through it. You can do it. We can all face our fears in a positive way, move forward, move through it, and reach our dreams and goals, right? I am so looking forward to the coming year, to more podcasts with great people who have lots of information to share. I am going to take a break in December due to the holidays. All of these people that I'm talking with are so very busy that we will return to the podcast in January. We'll be dark in December, but don't you worry. I will keep you thinking of me through Facebook on Your Restaurant Maven and my own personal Joan Miro Hutchinson, just to keep in your brain so that you can come return to these podcasts with me, learn from my guests, and grow.
Why am I doing this podcast? Because it's important to me that you know that we all have it in us to succeed. My guests weren't born into royalty. They're normal people like you and me who saw an opportunity and ran with it. So tune in every other Sunday at 6 p.m. Central for tips, tricks, and just plain old inspiration. And make sure you follow us on Anchor and Spotify for all the episodes. Now, if you're looking for more specific help with your restaurant hospitality business, check out www.yourrestaurantmaven.com. Read my blog, connect with me for coaching and consulting opportunities.
So let's go out there and make our dreams happen. Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to all of you that don't celebrate Christmas. I'm wishing you warm, wonderful holidays filled with people you love. Thanks again for joining me. Thank you, Chris Hutchinson, and see you next time.